I want to talk about Arista Network Stock, which is a stock that I actually have held previously. If you're a subscriber for quite a while, you would have known that I held the stock, I think it was about a year ago, maybe 2 years ago. And I think I bought in the stock around the $200 mark. And then I think I sold out about $280 and took a bit of profit. But now the stock has kind of had some bad news. It's taken the stock back down from its all-time highs. And we're going to look at some positives of the stock, some negatives of the stock, and then I'm going to tell you my opinion on the stock and if I'm going to buy it. But it's a stock that I know quite well, and I've also done a little bit more research into the stock just to update like things that have happened in the company. But I've definitely done a little bit of a deep dive in this company, so I've got quite a few information that I'll try condense into a few minutes and kind of give you my opinion on the stock going forward. So Arista Network Stock is basically a digital kind of online cloud company. I'll put a big description on the company just on top of the video right now, just so you can see what everything it does in case you don't know what Arista Networks exactly does. But the reason why we talk about this stock is because it's on a 32% discount. Now, when we look at the stock chart, it's had quite a nice ride up from its IPO, which I think was back in 2014. And since then, you'd have had a nice return in the company, and then it got to about 2018. And it's been a little bit choppy since then, and it's kind of gone up and down a bit. It's been a bit more like of a short-term swing trade stock that's been up and down. And it's kind of presented some decent opportunities to get into the stock and buy on a dip if you are interested in that stock. But since 2018, it kind of hasn't gone up as much, and the P used to be quite high, and now it's dropped as the earnings kind of catch up with Arista Network stock. Now, the actual reason why Arista Network stock is down at this kind of price is because of its earnings. Now, its earnings pretty much, according to a few analysts, the stock actually produced earnings that was in line, and some kind of said that, it was a little bit below what analysts were expecting, but it was kind of roughly in the right area. It wasn't anything crazy. But the thing that really spooked investors was the stock at the time was actually, after reporting the numbers, was up slightly, and then it came to the earnings call, and the earnings call just kind of went as wrong as it could, really, because the CEO who did the analyst kind of questions, when he was talking about the coming earnings, he said that it wasn't going to be as good as what they were expecting. It's going to be a bit of a rough 6 months, and they're not expecting to get as many customers as what they were doing. And it was kind of vague what was going on with the company. There wasn't really too many details apart from that it's going to be a slower kind of 6 months. There's not as much new customers coming, and there wasn't really many answers. And when kind of investors kind of don't get answers and there's like the uncertainty out there, that kind of leads to a lot of selling pressure, and investors like to know what's going on, and they didn't get that in the earnings call, and that's what kind of sent the stock down quite a bit, from around about $280 down to where it is right now. So first of all, I like to get a good grip of a company with how it's doing in its PE ratio. That's kind of the indicator of where I can see how valued it is, really, from my point of view. And I look at the PE, and right now it's at a PE of 24, which isn't too bad, especially when we consider the growth of the company, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But it's at a PE of 24, and that is actually quite low compared to previous PEs. It's actually right now at the lowest PE it's ever been at, which is pretty good. Beforehand, it's kind of been like high 20s and 30s, and even 40s and 50s, but 24 is a pretty low PE. Some people are still arguing that it's a little bit overvalued and that P is slightly too high. But when we consider the amount of EPS and certainly the revenue growth, that's still going to be like a 20%. This is a major growth company, doesn't pay a dividend. But when we consider and we look at the kind of revenue side of it, the revenue is still going to carry on near a 20% growth, which is pretty good going. The EPS is going to slow down a little bit, but still will probably grow going forward. But for the amount of revenue you get and to be at a P of 24, it's not too bad when we consider that. Now, when we also look at the balance sheet as well, that's another really important thing I like to look at. There's no debt on the company, which is a pretty good thing. And I always like to get a good feel of how the insiders are really treating the stock. And the insiders at the moment have a pretty decent hold. I think it's something around the 23% their insiders are holding it. The only kind of little negative that I did notice about it is that there is a couple of insiders that are selling shares and not buying shares, which kind of thinks, are they kind of seeing now a little bit of negative news going forward with the company, and that's why they're having a little bit of profit from the companies, because they don't feel the company's going to do that well over 6 months. You know, when the stock kind of goes down, I like to see if the insiders have been buying the company because they know they could turn it around. And if they're selling and doing the opposite, that's always kind of a little bit of a wary kind of thing for me. But when we look at the EPS and revenue growth, the EPS is still a pretty decent growth. We're still talking a very good growth on the revenue side of it. So it seems pretty good overall. So the kind of really three negatives that I picked up from this company when I had a deep look into the company is that obviously the insiders are selling that we've talked about previously before. Obviously when the stock goes down and this bad news comes out and the uncertainty, you'd think that they would buy if they kind of see upside here, but because they're selling, that kind of makes me a little bit nervous. We've obviously got the high PE, or in my opinion, I feel like that's a fair value PE because it's got some slowdown that's going on, which is the other negative. We don't know how bad the slowdown is because there wasn't a lot of information given to us and how the company's going to recover from it. We don't know how long of a problem this is going to be, but the P is not too bad really, considering that it's still growing at a double-digit growth going forward. So really, kind of my overall opinion with Arista Networks going forward is that it's a stock that I kind of like. It's interesting me. I'm a little bit nervous why there's not like much information come out in the earnings call like how the investors were. But the company overall, it seems like it's still going to have good growth. It's definitely a low PE. It's on a massive discount. And yeah, the stock does interest me. And I think it's a good opportunity to buy on a dip for sure right now on Arista Networks. I just don't know if I would definitely make it a big position. Whether or not, because I've got quite a lot of technology stocks and I do have Microsoft and Alibaba that both have like cloud segments in their company as well. I don't know if that's a little bit conflict of interest and not to go too heavy on that side of it. And it's a stock that I am watching, and depending on what opportunities come up in the next coming months and what price the Arista Network is at, might be where I kind of like look and consider what I'm going to do. Because to be honest with you right now, Arista Networks, you know, it's sitting at what, $220, something around about there. To be honest with you, I see about a 20% upside from here, and I see that, you know, it's probably the fair value will be about $270. So I'm kind of looking now and looking at Arista Networks, and I think, you know, there's 20% upside, I think, from this stock. Looking around, is there other opportunities where I'll get a better 20% return than investing in Arista Networks? And that's what I'm kind of weighing up right now and considering. So that's kind of my opinion with Arista Networks. You know, it's a good opportunity to buy a dip right now. Just for me, I'm kind of thinking, is there a stock out there that kind of balances my portfolio a little bit better and gives me more than the 20% upside? And there is like a few risks with the slowdown and not exactly knowing how the company's going to bounce back as well. So that's what I'm thinking. But, you know, I think it's a good opportunity to buy. I'm just unsure if there's another opportunity that's a bit better than Arista Networks out there right now for me personally. So that's my opinion on Arista Networks, guys. Thank you for watching. I hope it helped you if you were looking into Arista Network stock. If you could give you a video a like, that would be super. It helps the channel out massively. If you could subscribe as well, that'd be awesome. And I'll see you on the next video.